What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
And today, one of the all-time greats, Ice Cube, Lethal Injection. All right, Amir, so we're back here on The Great Debaters. For those that haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That really helps the cause, so please subscribe if you haven't already. Today, Amir, we're talking about your favorite rapper of all time, Ice Cube. His Lethal Injection album came out in 1993. That's the project we're going to be discussing our top three picks for top three songs on this album. Cube, up to this point and including this album, was on a masterful run that's essentially, if not totally unparalleled in rap history, of brilliance. And, you know, this is before he took a major hiatus before the War and Peace albums. So unbeknownst to us at the time, this was the last of the Cube run that we were going to be getting. But lots of great material on here. So Lethal Injection, how did you get into this project, Amir?
So sad. But the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest solo run ever for Cube, but up until later on. But yeah, man, this album is one of the first albums I bought because some of the first albums I bought were, you know, N.W.A, Wu-Tang, Nas, I've said in previous videos. So then when I got straight out of Compton, then I started to buy, you know, Dre solo catalog, Eazy solo catalog, Cubes, Ren, whatever. So this album I had heard after The Predator, obviously after Death Certificate and Miracles Most Wanted, and Kill It Will. And yeah, I was a big fan, and there's so much nostalgia for me on this album because I'd heard it when I was so young. So I'd heard this when I was in middle school, and it really puts me in a place when I hear some of these beats, some of these choruses, and some of this album is popular, so you do still hear it on the radio if you listen to the radio wherever you are. So it sticks with me. So Lethal Injection is interesting because you actually don't see Cube on the cover himself. You see him on the back. You see his name on the front, obviously, with the syringe as well as the text, but you don't see him. So I found that to be interesting. But let's go ahead and get into my first pick. I want to give a special shout out to the first track, which is called The Shot Intro, which you would imagine it's talking about, you know, just you know, a shot. You go to the doctor's office, you get a shot, and you see the syringe here, so that's what you're assuming. Cube is as we've said in multiple videos. Soren, if you would like to link one right now, we've talked about Cube's albums before, and he is very good at storytelling, and he's just good at, you know, hooking you into a song as well. Some of his first lines of songs that we stated in some of our videos are great, and he sets a table very well where he has this shot intro because, like I said, I'm thinking it's going to be, you're at the doctor's office. No, you know, he sets the frame, Mr. White, right? You know, so Cube continuing with that, and then he says, you know, brace yourself, and then literally as soon as that ends, it gets to really dope, but before it ends, you hear a gunshot. So instead of, you know, you're thinking he's just getting a physical or a checkup, this guy gets shot, and then it goes right into really dope, which that's crazy. Like the production on that, the sequence, the segue is fantastic. Then you get to really dope, this hard beat. Big shout out to Laylaw on that, and then just really dope production. And then we get to the verses, and Cube, I mean, before the verses, he's setting it up. You know, he's talking about.
So Really Doe is your first pick?
Really Doe, yeah, Really Doe. Sorry, it's my first pick. Yeah, I'm just talking about the whole album. So Really Doe's my first pick, and we get him talking about kind of like the atmosphere, what he's wearing, stuff like that. Then he gets into his verses. And I think Cube is I just really like the song a lot. I think his verses, like I said, he kind of, this is one thing about Cube a little later in his career, he's not talking as, like, the story kind of breaks up a little bit more in his verses as opposed to a little bit earlier, like in America's Most Wanted or Death Certificate, so that's slightly different, but there's still cool references and, like, mood music, and he's a little bit more gangster on this song, for example. But Really Though, I think, is really hard hitting. really dope. I love the chorus. You got to believe something, why not believe in me? And then he says, because I'm a motherfucking G, and all this, like, whatever. The start of the song, to G or not to G, that's the question. I think that was pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of cool one-liners and dope song, hard-hitting. That's my first pick.
Rest in peace to Laylaw. Phenomenal production job on this. Really dope. Not one of my picks, although it's one of my favorite songs on the album, of which there are several. But I'm going to actually go with Ghetto Bird as my first pick, as we go relatively chronologically throughout the album. I just thought Ghetto Bird, one, it took like a phrase or thing that people have talked about in general that was really prominent in an unfortunate reality with what was going on with the police here in Southern California in the late 80s, early 90s with the militarization of the police force. And of course, with N.W.A, and then as a solo artist, Ice Cube was one of the prominent people out talking about those atrocities that were being committed by the LAPD against especially black and brown residents. So, Ghetto Bird, before I get too much into it, is that one of your picks too?
It is.
Okay, well, why don't you talk about your stuff and then I'll add some sprinkles.
So, Ghetto Bird is one of my picks, their track on the album, and QD3, man. I mean, I saw a lot of QD3 in the early 90s, mid 90s, and this being the tail end of 93, right? So, Ghetto Bird, this is one of those songs when I first heard it, I was just in love with G-Funk at the time, you know, in my middle school years, high school years, and still to this day. But I was fascinated by the beat. At that time, I had never heard what a Ghetto Bird was. You know, I was 7th grade or something like that. So I was like, oh, what's that? And then, you know, I'm hearing the song, and kind of like in last week, we discussed in a friendly game, just a friendly game of baseball with Large Professor, how he's talking about, you know, you look at the track list and you're thinking, oh, it's just going to be about a baseball game or something. And Cube's like, Ghetto Bird, what's that? And then he breaks down what this is. It's a whole story about how he's trying to dodge the police. What is a Ghetto Bird? It's the helicopter, you know, following people in his neighborhood or his cities and what have you. And he breaks it all down, and he's trying to show how he's escaping, whether he's getting into a vehicle, stealing someone's car, saying, I don't want to hurt you, but I gotta run. You know, he meets up with a girl, he compares her to Harriet Tubman, you know, like all these things. And I think it's pretty clever what Ice Cube's saying. Like, I think a lot of his storytelling on his album really shines through this song in particular. So that I respect a lot. The beat is hard, it's memorable, and also just what you hear, you can hear just the police, like, in the chopper. Like, you hear them, and that's another thing that I love. We've talked about in previous videos, the production on these Cube albums, how they really pay attention to the finer details, I think adds a lot. It adds an extra, like, oomph to the song. So these are the little things that I myself appreciate, I know Soren appreciates. So Ghetto Bird is a classic and might be my favorite song from the album. If not, it's in the top 3 100%. So
it is my favorite song on Lethal Injection for all those reasons. And then, speaking of the production first, of course you have the G-Funk, but then to me the underlying bass and that menacing dun 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 dun, dun, like, and how that rides throughout the song, I think adds a certain level of intensity to it that really is a good signal and symbol for the terror of this Ghetto Bird thing that's flying around and helping to terrorize the citizens of South Central Los Angeles and LA County. When you see and realize that, as Amir said with the Harriet Tubman, like, this has been going on since slavery era for hundreds of years, and now it's still going on, you know, in 1993 when Cube released the song. So I think it's always very powerful and brilliant when rappers are able to, and artists in general, are able to detail and document how something that's going on currently is just an extension or a reflection or a continuation of what had been happening historically. And I think Cube does that brilliantly throughout his career, and Ghetto Bird, I think, is, again, one of the fine examples of that, and one of the finest examples of that. to really juxtapose historical situations with black people in America versus what was happening in 1993 with black people in America. It's just a brilliant expose, and to show, the terrible stuff that was happening, and to do it in a very clever, profound, and enlightening way. So my first pick, that was Amir's second pick. Amir, let's do your third pick, because I have a feeling we're going to overlap one more time.
So then my last pick is going to be the song right after, which is You Know How We Do It, which is a single from the album, as many of y'all know. I have the record right here, and it also has the B-side, which some of y'all may have never heard, called 2 in the Morning, which was not on the album. And actually, I want to talk about one last thing. Really Doe, which was my first pick, has the B-side, My Skin Is My Sin, on here, which is actually a really good Ice Cube song with D.O.C.
For sure.
So if you haven't heard My Skin Is My Sin, definitely listen to that. So want to shout that one out before, not on Lethal Injection. So You Know How We Do It, man. QD3, once again, does really well on the production here. Ice Cube, instead of, going the more slightly aggressive storytelling, police stalking, all this stuff, he goes with a super chill song right after Ghetto Bird and You Know How We Do It. And this is a song that I've heard on the radio plenty of times. I feel like I've heard it in video games. Like, I hear it all the time. My friends like it, which isn't always so common. So it's so good. Total, like, you can ride, you drive slow with the night and the top down or whatever music. And I love this song. And I remember, this is pretty funny. I remember when I was young, when I first heard this, I was listening to the lyrics, and Ice Cube has a line in the song where he says, "Don't drink and drive to keep the foe from crashing." I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh, he's saying don't drink and drive to keep the foo from crashing. Like, Ice Cube's a nice guy. He doesn't want to crash into people. That's nice. And then I learned later he just cares about his 6'4" Impala. I'm like, oh.
It's a little different.
A little different. It was 7th grade. I didn't really know what that was back then. So I thought that was funny when I heard it, later, listens later. And yeah, man, just a super smooth track. It also has a remix, which if you want to check that one out, I feel like KD was on one of the remixes, but I think the originals is the best, but just in case you haven't heard that remix. But great song, a staple in hip-hop and West Coast music especially. So that's my last pick.
You Know How We Do It's also one of my picks, my second pick, and I feel like in a way it was somewhat of a continuation of sorts, or a sister song to It Was a Good Day, because it was just very smooth. It had that Southern California sunny type of vibe and feel to it that clearly Ghetto Bird did not, more of the ominous side, whereas It Was a Good Day type of side. And then I like how he shouted out all the members of the lynch mob and the people that are down with him, his crew. I always enjoy it when artists are characters in the songs, like how we talked about with Ghetto Music Blueprint and Hip Hop, KRS-One referring to, Bo 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 with Chuck D and Rakim. Like, I always, I just like it when it happens. This is obviously more predictable because they're down with Cube and are with him all the time, but when KRS-One did it, as here with Cube doing it, I just always appreciate that with the little nods to the crew, and it just helps accent the song, I think. So amazing stuff. And then I thought too, the production by QD3, great work there, and very smooth and radio friendly, and the type of song that I think, to Amir's point, people that don't like rap could listen to this song because it's very smooth, it feels good, it feels nice, there's no profanity, it's just a cool song talking about what's going on in a laid back way. So I really enjoyed that. Now my third pick is What Can I Do? And I thought that this song really tells, to me, it harkened more back to like a song from Death Certificate, where it's talking about somebody being incarcerated and getting released, and then society saying, oh, you've served your time and you're good to go. But then when the guy gets out, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Yes. So it's like he can't get a job. He's stuck in these situations because of his criminal record. And going from the streets to set up the song and what's going on with the character there. Then he gets incarcerated and then he gets released. I thought that's one of the things I talk about in my book, The History of Gangster Rap. It's one of the things I talk about a lot on Unique Access when I interview artists, that the supreme storytellers, the greatest that we have in rap, especially on the gangster rap side, showed these negative sides of living that life. This is not, you're going to get 14, you're not going to have 14 chicks in your stable and have 85 guns and sell 95 kilos and live in a mansion and get away with it your whole life. No. What happens in more everyday life and more reality is What Can I Do, where a guy gets out of prison and then he has to reacclimate to society, in a society that essentially has turned its back to him before he was incarcerated because of being a black man from the hood. But then even after he's paid his debt to society, it's still, we don't care about you, and it's going to be hard, and what can I do? And I think that's a brilliant expose. And I think, again, like with Ghetto Bird, I think Cube does a great job of looking at these scenarios that are rampant in our society and putting it in a way that's palatable, digestible, and very straightforward, as painful and as powerful as they are. So I just think this is a great song. It's this is not one of Cube, generally speaking, doesn't have super long albums, but to Amir's point, and as we talk about sometimes, when some of your favorite songs are toward the end of the album, it just is kind of like, whoa, how did this song make it toward the end? It should have been up a little earlier. But Cube, in the sequencing that he has used throughout his career, I think has always worked extremely well. So it's always one of those things, like the album is so great, it's so great, it's so great, and then it just goes up to me a notch or two when What Can I Do comes on. So that's my third pick. Amir, what do you want to add on What Can I Do?
I was gonna say, when I first heard What Can I Do, I was a little shocked by the production of it. It's very different from my first three picks, and your first two picks. So I thought that was fascinating from the lyric perspective. I thought it was great. One thing that was also interesting is this is something that I'm sure pissed you off, just because I know some of the things that grind your gears, but I'm almost certain the music video had a different beat on it. So it's like you have that beat, then you get the album version, which is totally different. But then this one in my hand right here is a repress, which has 4 additional tracks. So it has What Can I Do, which Soren was just talking about, but then it also has What Can I Do, West Side Remix, which is the one in the music video, if I recall, and Mac 10's in the video.
All in the video. And
then What Can I Do, East Side Remix is also on here, which in my opinion is the worst of the 3 versions. But he has a West Side and an East Side, and then he has the original, but the lyrics are great on it. Like Soren said, it's just great storytelling, and it's something that you could have seen written and fit in on a death certificate or an American Most Wanted. So, I mean, even like what he said on A Bird in the Hand, where he says, went to school, got the AEE, welcome to McDonald's, may I take your order, please? And then in this video for What Can I Do, I think he's working, if not at a McDonald's, he's working at a fast food joint. So it's like, so storytelling is great, and like Soren said, he's not glamorizing all the gangster stuff, he's also talking about what comes with that side of the thing, with that side of it. So, great album, in my opinion. Those are our picks, and
another great project from Ice Cube.
Yeah.
You guys got our picks. As always, hit us up in the comment section. Let us know what you think. While you're down there, please like, subscribe, and share. And join if you haven't already become a member of Unique Access Entertainment. We really appreciate the support, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say, not only of your side of Lethal Injection, but of course what Amir and I have to say. I'm Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
Ice Cube, man. Thank you for this one.